right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the April 28th, 2022 school committee meeting. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency as amended by Governor Baker on February 12th, 2022, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. This meeting will be broadcast live on Facebook and recorded on ECAT. This meeting is open to the public and will take questions via the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. And please make sure to include your full name and address, and we'll do our best to answer all questions. However, we will not read questions that have already been answered. And at a later point in the meeting, I'm also going to make a motion to move up public comment a little further up the agenda. All right, so first up is the regular school committee meeting minutes for Thursday, March 31st, 2022. Questions, comments, edits? Jen? Oops. Jen?
Yes, hi. So I have one minor edit in the school committee notes on page 6. Lynn, in the third to last paragraph of the whole minutes, 4 lines up, it's Foxborough Sports Center, all one word, the town, not Foxbar. So just a small typo there. But no need to have people think our middle schoolers are in a bar league for hockey. It's Foxborough.
Good catch. Any others? All right. Can I get a motion to approve the regular school committee meeting minutes from Thursday, March 31st, 2022?
O'Neill, so moved. DeLuca. O'Neill, second.
All right. Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Grants, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. Next up is the regular school committee meeting minutes from Thursday, April 14th, 2022. Questions, comments, edits? All right. Can I get a motion to approve the regular school committee meeting minutes from Thursday, April 14th, 2022?
Star, so moved.
Can I get a second?
DeLuca, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right. Excellent. All right. Next up, executive session minutes from Thursday, March 31st, 2022. Does anyone want me to hold them for comments later or edits? All right. Can I get a motion to approve but not release the executive session minutes for Thursday, March 31st, 2022?
Wiseman, so moved.
Can I get a second?
O'Neill, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
DeLuca, abstain.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right. Thank you. And the next set of minutes is from executive session, Thursday, April 14th, 2022. Does anyone want me to hold them?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I think, yeah, minor, very minor question, but
Okay.
discuss an exec session. Thank you.
I've never had to do that. Do I just put it aside? My expertise over people here? All right. Held. Thank you. All right, presentation and vote to approve of the RMK and OA's planting tree in memory of DJ Henry. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. We have some guests joining us this evening. Lynn's bringing them over now. History Social Studies Department Chair Matt Auger, Denise Lane, Kelly Kavanaugh, Principal of OA, and OA Senior Tatum Perry. They're here to speak to you about planting a tree in memory of DJ Henry. It's a joint effort between OA and RMK, Raising Multicultural Kids. And I will kick it over to Ms. Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much. We're really excited to present this to you. This is a project that's been in the work for several years, and Mr. Auger has been a key player in that. So I'm going to pass it off to him and have him explain to you more about the project and the history behind it.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Good to see everyone. Congratulations to Ms. DeLuca and Ms. Starr on your re-elections. So I'm here to talk about the, we're looking to plant a tree for DJ Henry. As some of you may know, in 2020, we started doing an annual DJ Henry Day here at Olive Branch High School. And after that day, a lot of students want to do more to memorialize DJ. And one of the ideas that resonated with a lot of groups of students was the idea of planting a tree in his memory. And due to COVID and the prospect of potentially using the courtyard as an outdoor classroom, you probably remember we had like an outdoor area fitted for that with a, I don't know what it was, but either way, we delayed doing the tree because we thought we'd be using that space as an outdoor classroom. And so the RMK youth, as you've met Claudia Ferrara, who is one of the leaders of the RMK youth, helped spearhead this effort. And we've been in touch with the Henry family along the way. And if you don't mind, do you mind if I share my screen for one moment? Okay, I'm just going to share just so people can get a perspective on what we're talking about. There it is. Can you see that picture?
We can.
Okay, good. So I just wanted this open space here in the courtyard. This is the courtyard across from the library at the high school. And we've identified that as the location for planting the tree, just so that people are aware where we're talking about here. I can stop sharing my screen. Hold on one second. Stop sharing. So that's the location where we're looking to plant the tree. The RMK youth and our students have been working on this. Tatum Perry is a senior here at Olive Branch High School, and she's our student liaison for RMK youth. And we're also working with our ADL peers, and our ADL peers are going to be doing a fundraiser and some various fundraisers to raise money for the planting of the tree. And we're targeting a June date for a ceremony. We just have to confirm with the Henrys a day that works with them, because we'd love them to obviously be part of that ceremony.
Mr. Auger, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just looking at the attendees for Tatum, because I know that she was supposed to be a part of this presentation, and
Yeah.
I don't see her name. So
Okay.
Tatum, if you are there, if you could please comment what name you're under so that I could move you over to be a panelist. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I think it's important to know that this is a student-driven project. The students were the ones who pushed for this. The students were the ones who were doing all the fundraising and organizing.
Mr. Auger,
Yes.
could you, I thought you were done, sorry. Can
No,
you,
that's okay.
Can you speak to signage or a plaque that might be present, and what maybe the students have chosen for that, or if they're still working on it?
Yeah, we were identifying potentially doing a small plaque beneath the tree. Bridgewater Trophy, that does a lot of the plaques around the building, they can make small little plaques that actually go into the ground right by the tree. And so we're going to plan on doing that. We just need to confirm with the family language that they're okay with too as well. But something to memorialize the tree for DJ.
Chrissy, did anyone raise their hand or comment? Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
All right. Any school committee questions, comments?
Oh, I got a text message from Kristen Shea, the art department chair, and she just said that Tatum has to drop off her artwork for the congressional art competition. So she might be stuck in traffic. So Tatum is a rock star at OA, and she's involved in many things. So she's dropping off her artwork for the congressional art show, so she may be late. So
That's
that
great.
might be why. But I
Well,
know
that's an
that
awesome
she's
reason to be late.
I'm sorry?
I said that's an awesome reason to be late.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions, comments? Jen?
No questions, but I just want to say I fully support this. I think it's a great idea, and I'm really glad that it's student driven. And good job to all the students involved and for all the staff for supporting them.
Caroline?
What Jen said.
You know. All right, awesome. All right, so we have to vote to just on the OA planting of the tree and plaque. Do we need to do that, even though the plaque, okay. So can I get a motion to approve the RMK and OA's student project for planting of a tree in memory of DJ Henry and a plaque to go with that?
O'Neill so moved with enthusiasm.
Can I get a second?
Star second?
All right, roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
DeLuca, yes. Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Great, thank you. I'm excited to see that.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all very much, and thanks to Mr. Auger for organizing this with the students. Really
Absolutely.
appreciated that.
Excellent. All right, next up.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kavanaugh, I know that you are on a presentation later. So if I remove you from this, then it'll remove you from the whole thing. So
Okay.
if you want to just stay here and turn your camera off or keep your camera on, whichever.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, discussion and vote to accept a donation for athletics. Dr. Cabral?
Okay, I know that I'm gonna mispronounce this name, so I'm gonna say it, attempt to say it. I'm gonna spell it because this is very important. Elias Souden, Souaidan. And as someone whose name is Leisha and all the time gets my name butchered, I am extremely sorry for not pronouncing that correctly because I'm sure I didn't. However, Elias from 24 Auto Group is interested in sponsoring a sign like the ones that are on the fence at the stadium. Those signs sell for $10,000. Previously, they've sold for $10,000. The funds from those signs typically went to the Friends of Easton to support the turf renewal project. However, we know that the Friends of Easton is now dissolved. We did recently replace the turf, but we do need to think forward about how that is going to be replaced again in the future. So I don't know that we need to make a formal plan this evening about how we are going to prepare for the turf. That is something that we continue to discuss and can work on. But this advertisement for 24 Auto Group, we would like to accept it if you are so inclined to vote in favor of it, and we will put it toward that fund to replace the turf in another 8 to 10 years with extreme appreciation for the generosity of that for that advertisement. So that is for your consideration and possible vote this evening.
Caroline?
Do we have to actually see a mock-up of the sign? I know that we were doing that quite consistently, and then a few times sort of fell off the radar, the fact that we were supposed to approve the actual mock-up, but I just wondered if that was a possibility. If it's not available yet, I'm sure we can just look at it in the future.
No, absolutely. This is for you to accept the donation, and then we can make it contingent upon seeing the final design. The design, the donor needs to know if it's going to be accepted before any expense goes into creating a design for it. So if you accept the donation, then we can absolutely make it contingent upon you approving the final design.
That makes sense. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine. I just, it is sort of a technicality that we have.
No, it's very important that you do that.
Maybe I missed it. Is it an anonymous donation?
No, no.
Elias, should I?
I didn't hear that. So
Elias Souaidan.
yeah.
And I'm very sorry for that. Souaidan.
I guess I wasn't clear. There's a dollar amount anonymous, I guess is what I'm asking.
$10,000.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, am I cutting out? I'm not, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good.
Jackie, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to confirm the donation amount as well, so thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Nancy?
Yep, same as Jackie, just thank you very much. And I'm all in favor of signs at the high school. I think that's a great way to put money into that turf fund. So thank you to the Swiden family.
Anyone else? All right, Caroline, do you want to make the motion so you can word it for to be able to see the sign as well?
Okay, I move that we accept the very generous donation from 24 Auto Group, Elias Swiden, and contingent on our approval of a mock-up of the sign. Oh, I guess, wait a minute, I take that back. I move that we approve the donation, the generous donation by Elias Swiden from 24 Auto Group. And that, let's see, but the funds to be provided after approval of the sign design. Does that make sense? Just trying to be very specific.
All right. Do I have a second?
Star, second.
Second, DeLuca.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you to the donor for that. Discussion and possible vote on naming a nook. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. Kristen Shea, our department chair, is here this evening, along with Sue Sweeney, the Business, Family, Consumer Science, Industrial Arts department chair, along with the Oliver Ames class president, Kate Trong, and vice president, Kimora Peters. They would like to present on behalf of the senior class who is interested in naming a nook in the OA library after our beloved retired librarian, Joan Holt. They reached out to Ms. Leslie Fitzgerald from the naming committee on a price, and it was recommended to them that the cost would be $500. So the OA president and vice president are here and would like to present this idea to you. So we have Kate and Kimora, please welcome and please take the floor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Trong, and I am the president of the Oliver Ames class of 2022.
Hello, my name is Kimora Peters, and I am the vice president of the Oliver Ames class of 2022.
We would like to begin by thanking you for allowing us to share our idea for our senior class gift. As you may know, each year, graduating classes leave behind a gift to commemorate their time at OA.
This past year, Mrs. Holt, our school librarian, retired. Mrs. Holt was a valuable member of the OA community, and she was particularly important to our class. Mrs. Holt not only greeted us in the library each day, ready to help us with whatever we needed, but she was also one of our dedicated and hardworking class advisors.
In honor of Mrs. Holt, our class would like to create a reading space to the left of the library's entrance and name the space the Joan Holt Reading Nook. With a $500 donation for the naming of the space, along with the purchase of 2 comfortable reading chairs, we could create a space that would be used and enjoyed by students for years to come. This gift exemplifies Mrs. Holt's passion for reading and the important role reading plays in a student's education. We hope you agree and approve our request.
Thank you again for your time and for allowing us to present our class of 2022 senior gift proposal. We would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Wonderful job, ladies.
Caroline?
I just want to say I totally love this. I can't think of anyone more deserving, and I can't think of a more appropriate way to honor Ms. Holt. So kudos to you. Is it just the 2 of you who came up with this, or are you doing, I know you're doing it on behalf of the class, but this is just a remarkable idea.
We owe it all to our fellow class advisors, Mrs. Shea and Mrs. Sweeney. They were very helpful and they came up with this idea and we were just in support of it.
Well, it's terrific. Thank you.
Anyone else? Jen?
Ditto what Caroline said, and it's great to see you two. You are absolute superstars in your class. And thank you for all of your service to your classmates and to the OA community. You will definitely be missed next year.
Great. All right. Oh, Nancy?
Yes, Mrs. Holt, I believe, you can correct me, girls, if I'm wrong, but her last advisory class is our senior kids, correct? She has seniors in her advisory group, right?
That is
Yes,
correct.
she does.
Yes. So I believe the space you're talking about is where she has her advisory group meet, and there I know about 4 of the kids in there, and they love Mrs. Holt, and I agree with Caroline, Jen, everybody. This is a great idea, and thank you very much for doing that.
All right, great. Can I then get a motion to accept the senior class donation for the naming nook in the OA library?
Star, so moved.
So move DeLuca.
Can I get a second?
Star second. Give Nancy the, the first.
All right, roll call vote. Where'd Caroline go?
I had to unmute myself. O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Great, and thank you. What a great idea. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask, does Ms. Holt know about this yet?
No, she
Oh.
does, no, she
Oh,
does
she's
not.
not
She's
watching.
watching this
Not
right now.
watching.
She might now.
That's
Thank you
beautiful.
all.
I know she'll appreciate it very much. You're wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Guys.
Nobody tell her.
All right, 6, discussion and vote to approve a donation from Sarah's Village. Dr. Cabral?
Yes, what an evening. We have another possible donation acceptance. This is Mark and Cynthia Bresnahan, founders of Sarah's Village, and the parents of Sarah. Chrissy and Teresa Skinner are here to speak about this very moving donation this evening. Ms. Pruitt, Ms. Skinner?
Sure. So Mark and Cynthia, Sarah's parents, are here, and I'd rather, instead of explaining the foundation, I'd rather have them share, because they are, this is in their daughter's honor. They have been absolutely wonderful to work with. Corinne McCarthy is also here to share ideas that we all have regarding use of the funding. So with your permission, I'd like to turn it over to Cynthia and Mark. As you can see, they are in the car, so thank you so much. And Corinne's on the softball field. So we are coming at it from all locations. Thank goodness for Zoom for these situations. Mark and Cynthia, I turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy. Yeah, sorry we weren't dropping off any great artwork or anything, but we have a different excuse for being in the car. But thanks so much. So Cynthia and I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you guys tonight. We have 2 children, Thomas and Sarah, who went through the Easton school system. And Thomas graduated in 2012 and Sarah in 2016. Unfortunately, Sarah succumbed to a mental illness we didn't realize she had, and died by suicide on April 6, 2017. At that point, we informally formed Sarah's Village with the mission of being kind and helping others. Over the last 5 years, we've aligned with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and raised about $110,000 for that organization, mostly through walks at Borderland on an annual basis. Last year, we decided to formally become a 501c3 in hopes of taking the money that we raised and putting it directly back into the community And we've chosen Easton for all the great opportunities it provided to both of our children, and really appreciate all you guys do for the leadership in presenting opportunities for the students of Easton. And then we've also chosen Norton because Cynthia spent 20 years there as a special education teacher. So our first thing that we'd like to do for you guys is propose donating $20,000 from the money that we've raised to Easton.
It's
That's
absolutely, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Dr.
That's overwhelming, very generous. You're clearly making a difference with your work and certainly with your donations. This will go a long way to helping the children of Easton. We are, on behalf of the school department, honored to receive this in Sarah's memory, and thank you for all that you do.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Teresa, you're on mute.
I apologize. Cynthia and Mark, it's been an honor to meet the two of you and to just spend some time together and hearing your story. We're just so grateful for your support. And as Leisha said, this will go a long way to help supporting our students here in Easton.
So I don't know if you want to hear the ideas of how the funding will be used, or if you want to accept the donation first.
No, let's hear the ideas.
Okay, so Mrs. McCarthy, first of all, are
Hi.
we winning?
No, unfortunately,
That's
we're
fine.
not.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna pretend that I'm just doing my job right now.
Okay.
Okay. So it has been amazing working with Mark and Cynthia. I've already have so many ideas. I've been working with them with our ideas and what they've done in Norton. A couple of things that we're looking to start is the Reduce Stress, Increase Your Success program to help build stress management type of skills for some students. So we're going to try to start that as like the last part of our school year. We are also working on building a wellness type of program, a wellness type of student-led group. We do feel that the student-led activity, those types of things just are so powerful coming from kids, from their peers. So that as well. And bringing in speakers to talk about mental health and to reduce the stigma is really what we are focusing on and what we will be using the funds for. And one other thing I'd like to add too is I really like RO 3 through 5. We are noticing, just the younger. So I think the more they can build the skills at a lower level and be able to really strive.
Thank you. Does anyone, Caroline?
I just wanted to say to this family that I can't imagine how difficult it is to experience such a loss, and to honor your daughter in this way just is so remarkable, and we're just so very grateful to you. That's it. Anyway, but thank you so much.
Thanks.
Nancy?
Yes, thank you very much. I know my sister had her as a student a while back, so she just loved her. So it's just such a difficult thing, but thank you very much for your donation. And I think, Corinne, those are a lot of good ideas there. Thank you.
And if I may just also share that one of the wonderful thing about the partnership with Sarah's Village is the ideas that they've shared with us and the partnerships that they're helping us form. And it's, you'll see coming up in our presentation of the Youth Risk Survey information is that it directly correlates with some of the findings that we have. So this is an extremely grateful donation to be receiving, especially in the light of the data that we're receiving on what our students are going through. So, we really appreciate the funding, but also the contribution and the ideas that you are providing for what works in schools. So we are extremely grateful for that as well. And we continue to look forward to our partnership.
Yep, as do we. Thanks.
Jen?
Just want to say that Sarah was a classmate of my two oldest kids, so her passing really hit home for my family since my kids both knew her. And I'm just so grateful that you've been able to turn such a deep, traumatic personal loss into something that can help other members of the community. So just kudos to you for being able to do that. I imagine it's extremely difficult, and we're very, very grateful for the donation that'll help put some programs in place that'll help other students and hopefully prevent other families from having to go through what you've been going through. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
And I want to echo what everyone's been saying, and I was trying to figure out how to put it into words, and Jen just kind of did that for me. I can't even imagine the loss and the processing of all that, but for it to come out on the other side with such a vision and a plan, and to be able to affect so many students in our system right now with such a multifaceted approach to giving them the resources and the knowledge and the courage to step up and seek out help. And so I thank you for that. Okay, anyone else?
You're welcome.
All right, so would someone like to make a motion to approve the donation from Sarah's Village to the Easton Public Schools?
Wiseman, so moved.
Can I get a second?
O'Neill, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes, with a very grateful thank you.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Sarah, yes.
All right, thank you. And thank you for coming, even in your car tonight.
Thanks for
Our
having us.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. All right, so before we get to the next item, what I want to do is, with the anticipation that there might be a lot of public comment on the presentation for the youth risk survey for OA and EMS, is I would like to make a motion to move up public comment to come right after the presentation, so become the new item 8, to allow people, while the speakers are here, to be able to ask questions directly. So if nobody has an objection to that, could I get a second?
Wiseman, second.
Okay, roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, thank you. So we'll be moving that up. So then our next item is the presentation of the 2021 Youth Risk Health Survey for OA and EMS. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. Several members of the committee that works tirelessly on putting together and implementing and analyzing the data from this survey are here this evening. They include Teresa Skinner, Director of Student Services, Kelly Kavanaugh, Principal of OA, Susan Mancuso, Director of Guidance, Abby Boyd, Guidance Counselor, Corinne McCarthy, again, the Chair of PE Health and Wellness, and possibly Eileen Gardner, School Nurse, if she's able to join us. Also Kendall Bennett, and I also see Kelly Reed here this evening. They are our invaluable community partners that have not only started this work with us, but been with us throughout the entire time that we've been doing this assessment, and they represent our community partners, the YMCA and the Easton Wings of Hope. So I will move this to Mrs. Pruitt. I'm not sure who is going to begin the program, so I'll send it to Mrs. Pruitt.
Thank you. So Teresa Skinner, Director of Student Services, will be leading this presentation. I do have it on my screen, so I will screen share, but I'm going to turn it right over to Mrs. Skinner.
Thank you, Chrissy. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. I just wanted to start by giving a little bit of background about the Youth Health Survey. It was started in the 1990s by the Centers for Disease Control, really in response to seeing risky behaviors that resulted in some significant health issues for adolescents. Massachusetts started administering this assessment in 1993, and in Easton, we started in 2015. The purpose really behind doing this survey is to get information directly from our students. And students are generally honest in responding, and the information and data that we receive really helps drive our decision-making around programming. It helps us identify areas of need where we need to do more education. And it's really to help students develop the confidence and be informed about the risks in certain types of behavior. The survey asked questions about a lot of different things, everything from eating habits, exercise, violence, alcohol, drug use, sexual activity. So there's a range of questions on the survey. And it does provide us good data. Now that we've been doing it since 2015 in Easton, we're getting some longitudinal data over time, which can be really, really helpful. Kendall Bennett is really going to talk about most of how the survey is set up. So Chrissy, if you want to move to the next couple of slides. There we go. I also want to thank the Easton Wings of Hope, the YMCA. They've been great partners. And of course, parents. We really have to be partners in the education of your children. And having worked in other districts, I see that Easton is a very strong community with great parent partnerships, and we're really grateful for that support. So Chrissy, if you want to keep moving this slide. Kendall, do you want to jump in here at this point?
Yeah, definitely. Nice to meet you all. My name is Kendall. My background is in public health biostatistics. I am the evaluator for the Drug-Free Communities program that Easton Wings of Hope has through the CDC, which is federal funding for substance use prevention. There are a number of core measures that are required to be collected each year around substance use and substance use perceptions, all of which you'll see in this presentation. Those we have to collect at least every 2 years for our funder, the CDC, for this program. And so this survey serves that purpose along with many other purposes for the schools and the community in terms of encouraging healthy behaviors and limiting risky behaviors for young people. So just a little bit about how the survey is conducted based on the very quick increase in technological capacity. This year, the survey was fully digital, and previously, the past, I believe, 2 surveys were digital at the middle school and then at the high school. They had always done it on pen and paper on Scantrons, and so now everybody's digital, which is really great. It saves a lot of time. The survey itself is adopted from the 2021 Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which is published by the CDC. Massachusetts also releases its own versions of the questionnaire. They were a little bit out of date, so we didn't use those for this year. And then we also look at previous surveys conducted by the Easton Public Schools going back to 2015, as Teresa said. Data is 100% anonymous. There is no identifying information, including IP address, anything like that. We're really not able or interested in extracting any of that information. The data undergoes a validity process to make sure that students who are not interested in really filling out the survey and, maybe just jot some answers down or, get a little funny with it, that's totally their right to do. It's their data. They can do what they want with it. And we try our best to remove those surveys so that we get the most honest respondents possible. And we even asked the students at the end, did you tell the truth on this survey? And many students say, you know what, no, I didn't, and it's helpful. So from there, the data is only looked at in aggregate. No person at the school ever has access to look at individual lines of data to say these are the demographics of this student and this is how they've answered or anything like that. If you want to jump to the next slide. Oh, thank you. Sorry, I was looking at my notes on another screen, which obviously didn't move. So for our survey participants, we had 77% of high school representation, 84% of middle school representation. Both are very good, statistically significant samples. We can sort of assume here that the data is very well representative of the students that are there. We generally do have a higher response rate, but with COVID and everything, there was probably a lot of students home and in quarantine and, just a lot more, many more factors than previously there have been. Take the next slide, please. So we're just going to start jumping right into the data here. That's really going to be my role. And I know that the committee has really rich information on how they're responding to this data, including, using the donation from Sarah's Village and things like that. So I will get through the boring part and then they can let you know how they're using this data. So you will notice on the right-hand side of most of these charts, you will see a comparison schools column. So what that is I also evaluate for a number of other schools, and those schools have agreed to act as a comparison sample for each other because the state data will not be released for probably at least 6 or 9 more months. So it makes it very hard to compare, especially in unprecedented times. It's hard to say, are we normal, are we not normal? So these schools it's multiple schools. They want to remain sort of anonymous, and Easton is anonymously sharing their data with them so that they can remain a big sample without having to, pinpoint this school looks like this school looks like this. That's not what this is about. We're just trying to say regionally, what does the data look like? So that's what that comparison schools means. It's an average of a couple different other local schools. So we're starting with the high school. The next couple slides will all be around the high school. And what we're seeing, and I think it really matches the anecdotal data and the qualitative data that are coming out of schools all over, not just Easton. The depression rates are definitely increasing. As you can see with the comparison sample, it's not quite increased as high as some other schools in the region, but it has increased in a statistically significant way from 2019. It's one of really the only indicators that's really increased very much, as you'll see. So it's definitely something to take into consideration. A real bright spot here is that suicidal ideation, a plan for suicide, and suicide attempts actually have not increased in a statistically significant way. And planned suicide has actually decreased in a statistically significant way. So these are really great numbers and is something to capitalize on when we're seeing those questions around suicide. Definitely is something that is something to celebrate. Now, with the increase in the depression number, it's something now we have to watch out for because depression might be sort of more of a base level that we can work with prevention versus these much more severe conditions with suicidality. So it's definitely something that I know the schools are very well prepared for and really, thinking about how to react to and are putting many things into action. For these numbers, we do see a very significant difference in male versus female students. This is an example of how we use the gender question. So we will say, do these numbers look the same in different groups of students? So for depression, the rate for females was 32.5%. The rate for males was 19.8%. And we see similar differences with the other 3 questions, with females being higher than males. So this is definitely something to think about as the schools are planning their programming, that different groups of students may require different levels of intervention. I'll take the next slide, please. The next group of questions that I'm going to present to you, and I will just say there are many more questions, positive questions, risk behavior questions. There's probably like 100 questions on the survey, so not every question will be discussed. But I am trying to provide you more with my talking points here so that, it's not a 100 slide presentation, but these are the things that we presented last time, so we thought it was really important to provide an update on everything that was discussed at the last time we presented to the school committee a few years ago. All right, so for personal safety, these are just various measures of personal safety. These numbers all look quite good. They haven't increased much. And the one that really sticks out to me is the actual decrease in electronic bullying after the students have been essentially online for almost everything they've done. So the ability for the community of Easton Public Schools and partners and parents to protect students when they're online almost exclusively for an entire year is certainly something to be really celebrated here. We see other questions about whether or not students have carried a weapon at school. There's no significant change there, and it looks just like the region as well. Whether or not people have reported that they've been in a physical fight, while 8.4% of students have reported being in a physical fight, only 2.1% of students have reported being in a physical fight on school property. So that's a really important delineation to make. That not a lot of this, less than a quarter, is happening at school. And then we have the bullying numbers. And then just a couple other notes that I have for myself here is that 5% of females reported not going to school in the past year because they felt unsafe. And only 0.8% of males reported the same thing. So definitely something else to consider there. We have to watch out for our female students and sort of identify what these unsafe feelings are coming about as a result of. Okay, the next slide is about sexual health and safety. And so this slide doesn't have the comparative data for other schools because I didn't have a comparison sample of a great enough size from other schools. So these questions are about sexual assault. What is really great to be able to report is the significant and longitudinal decrease in sexual assault. It's absolutely great news. It's never good news to see that 5% of students have reported a sexual assault of any kind, but to have that number decrease, by more than double is really something great. Actually, I do have a regional sample that's just not in this chart. 7.3% in the region said that they had been sexually assaulted. So that left-hand side, has anyone had sexual contact with you against your will? And they had 4.8% for that right-hand question there. For basic sexual intercourse, so not necessarily sexual violence, we had 19.9% of students reported that they have had sexual intercourse in their lifetime. Actually, that's all I have on that particular number here. And then we have, okay, sorry, there's a little bit of unrelated notes and I need that about texting and driving that I'm going to skip over. So yeah, like I said, 19.9% of students at the high school level specifically reported that they have ever had sexual intercourse. Okay, next slide, please. The next few slides are around substance use. So lifetime substance use, these questions specifically ask if the person has had at least a whole drink of alcohol, not just a sip of alcohol. So we've seen these numbers steadily decrease. And we do have to remember that during a pandemic, it has decreased access to a lot of risky activities. So it's decreased access to social situations, decreased access to situations in which they may be unsupervised. So while these numbers are low, and that's fantastic, we have to keep in mind that young people have many more opportunities to engage with each other and to possibly engage in risky behavior. So we really should capitalize on these low numbers. We have now sort of an unprecedentedly low number of young people using substances or doing other risky behaviors. And it's a great opportunity to continue to educate them and then push that age of first use away or possibly never have an age of first use. There's been a decrease in all substances except for cigarette smoking, and I will talk a little bit more about that once we get to the next slide. There's maybe some speculation that if a young person had a nicotine addiction from maybe vaping and maybe didn't have access during the pandemic, if they didn't have access to those devices when they were at home, it may have been easier to come across a cigarette versus coming across a vaping device, but that's really speculation. We really don't know, what it's a result of. But if you skip to the next slide, we can actually see that the 30-day use rate, so this is what we would consider the current users, that rate for cigarette smoking has not increased. So while more young people than previously have tried smoking or have experimented with smoking cigarettes, that does not appear to be a lasting trend, and we don't have a high rate of current users of cigarette smoking. It's certainly something the schools are thinking about, and really making sure that there's cessation resources for young people who vape, smoke, or use any other form of tobacco. Just like the lifetime use, all of these 30-day use rates have gone down significantly. They all look very similar to the surrounding communities that have surveyed since the beginning of the pandemic. And there's really quite a lot to be proud of here. If you wanted to skip to the next slide. So for this question, we have perceptions. This is a really big thing in the substance use world in prevention. So it's very important that young people feel that their parents and feel that their peers would disapprove of their using of substances. And back in the day, it was very common to have lots of scare tactics or lots of everybody's doing it, but I know you're not going to do it. I know you're going to be different than the crowd and you're not going to use substances. But what we really want young people to know here is that the majority of students don't use substances. And it's very important that they understand that to be normal, to be typical, to fit in, that would actually mean not using substances if you wanted to be like the average high schooler. And then to right along with that, we want young people to know that their parents and their friends don't want them to use substances. So there's some things to be celebrated here. It seems like all that time at home, parents have been really talking to their kids about substance use, which is amazing. There are some numbers that are a little bit lower. We do have 12% of high schoolers reporting that they don't believe that their parents would be disappointed if they used marijuana at this point in their life. And so that's something that we hope to encourage more conversations around, making sure that young people know about the developing brain and how using substances, before the age of 25 has a very specific impact on their brain. We can see here that they definitely feel like there's a lower chance that their friends are going to be disappointed if they're using marijuana or using electronic vapor products. So that's another way that campaigns can happen or engaging activities in school can happen to talk to young people about how they're using, about how they would disapprove or how they would appreciate if their friends didn't use dangerous substances. The top two reasons that youth at the high school reported that they don't use alcohol is because they don't want to disappoint parents and because it's bad for their health. So those are two really great things. We're really proud that young people are listening to their parents and they care what their parents have to say, which is amazing. And then also that we have a lot more young people this time than in previous surveys. And we even saw this in some of the open response comments, acknowledging that their brain is not fully developed yet and it's not safe for them to use substances at this point in their life. I know Corinne McCarthy has been really working her curriculum towards making sure that young people hear that message. So it was really, really interesting to see young people actually repeating that very important piece of information back. I am actually going to pass it on now for the next slide to Corinne and Kelly, I think.
And this is really to connect what we do now with this data and how we're addressing some of these issues.
Thank you. And Corinne and Susan Mancuso is also on this call, our Director of School Counseling. So feel free to jump in at any point, but we just wanted to outline the current supports that we have in place here at the school. As already noted, our health curriculum addresses so much of this content throughout. the curriculum, as well as biology, writing seminar, marketing, and some of our other classes in the building. We have a poster campaign, that's an anti-vaping campaign, as well as resources for students. Diversionary programs, so if a student is caught using at school, we have programs that we use through our nursing department, along with our assistant principals and our counselors, in order to educate kids on substance use, the effect on their brain, and the impact it can have on their life. And then we have a bunch of student-run groups, our Mind, Body, Soul group, our SAD group, and our Chapter 84 organization here at the school, where it's student-run organizations encouraging their peers and educating their peers to not use, and the impacts of using drugs and alcohol on them. Do Susan or Corinne want to add anything else to this slide?
I just wanted to highlight again, as Mrs. Kavanaugh mentioned, I think it's great that I think students hear some of these messages across different departments, so they recognize it's a unified message, particularly around, for example, the second bullet there about vaping. For example, some of our biology teachers will talk about vaping and the impact it has on the actual physical body and the lungs and so forth. For writing seminar, for example, it's a course where students work on improving their writing skills. A lot of times they'll do writing prompts in class. And so sometimes those topics are about current events or topics in the world. So sometimes they may receive a prompt about vaping and what your feelings are on it, something like that. Marketing, for example, they look at how different companies target different audiences to sell their product. In this case, how it's perceived by adolescents. And to just scroll down a little bit there, we talk about, it's the second to last bulletin there. We have the SBIRT screening and the SOS screening. SBIRT is completed by our nurses. It's basically a screener to assess substance abuse. And from there, there's some intervention with the nurses, depending on the student's responses. They determine, they have a conversation with the student about the implications, and then look at the appropriate course of action for treatment and so forth. And then SOS screening is our signs of suicide screener that the school counseling and support staff administer every year to our sophomores. Of course, we weren't able to do it last year, so this year we did complete it with both our sophomores and juniors, which is a difficult presentation to do sometimes, but it is really beneficial because sometimes we are able to identify students who maybe were not previously aware of. So from there, we are able to assess and then again identify the next course of action to support those students. So I think we are trying to branch out and cover a lot of different topics through the student support programs, student-led programs, curriculum in the classrooms, and things like that.
Thank you, Susan. And so for next steps, as a school, we, and coming out of the pandemic, I think we were ready to hear that there's an increase in depression in our students. And I've already had some of this stuff in the works this year. So again, we already mentioned the very generous donation from Sarah's Village, which will bring in the Epinoni Health and Wellness Center to do a stress reduction and increase your success program for students that would benefit from such a program. It includes a lot of mindfulness activities in order to give students the strategies that they need in order to manage their day and decrease their stress and anxiety. And we're collaborating with Sarah's Village and Easton Wings of Hope to bring in guest speakers around mental health, destigmatizing mental health, and just that common language of it's okay to not be okay, and how to get help and how to seek out help and the importance of getting it. Corinne, as well as our adjustment counselors here at the high school, are starting a new student group that's focused on mental health awareness that is completely student run and based on student voices. That group is getting up and running this spring, and we'll get some training hopefully through some grant work that we're going to present to you a little bit later in the spring. We're really excited about this work. And then finally, the assistant principals here at Oliver Ames are exploring some additional diversion programs that are more long-term. So right now, the diversion program that we have with our nurses is excellent and gives students a targeted response to an incident. But some of the programs that are out there that are free of cost, developed by local universities, extend beyond just one time and give students additional supports over the course of time in order to continue to encourage them to abstain from substance use and give them the supports that they need in order to do so. So those are some next steps for us as a school. And then Susan and Corinne, if you have anything else to add, please do so.
No, I think you covered everything at this point.
Great.
All right, I will take the next slide. So moving on to the data that came out of the middle school.
Kendall?
Yes.
Sorry, can I just interrupt 1 second? Just before you
absolutely.
transition from the high school to the middle school. I just wanted to know, I absolutely agree with Ms. Bennett's conversation regarding the impact of the pandemic on our statistics. And that's very true. In addition to that, though, ever since 2015, we've seen some trends that have been extremely helpful and I think very indicative of the work that this entire team has done. And so I just want to make sure that we really credit that work. The suicide rate has the idea of suicidal ideation in high school has gone down. We're seeing that a little bit different in the middle school. So we're going to talk now about the difference, or their team is going to talk about the difference between the high school and the middle school. But you know, when we saw that trend at the high school, the professionals you see here really worked a lot on that conversation, the implementation of SOS, the conversation around suicidal ideation. There was a lot of training and programming for students on bullying, particularly electronic bullying. And I think what Ms. Bennett said about how everyone was on electronic devices exclusively for a period of time and almost exclusively for another period of time. I think that the fact that that did not escalate and in fact went downward was a direct result of the efforts there, and that those efforts were a direct result of the survey information along with qualitative and anecdotal information that we were receiving from people who work with these students every day. We're also seeing things like sexual assault going down. And that is, again, I believe a direct result of the refusal skills and programs that have happened at the high school. The cessation programs for vaping even, we were very concerned because that was increasing pretty rapidly. And now we're seeing just the opposite. So the idea now is, and the reason why we also assess the middle school is you can see that a lot of this work is reactive, and I'm very proud of the team for reacting so quickly and making a difference. But our question, of course, always is how can we also be proactive? So same thing when we're looking at the middle school. What have we been able to see that we can react to? But remembering that today's middle schoolers are tomorrow's high schoolers. And if we can limit some of their exposure or ideation about some of these behaviors and activities, we can work in a more proactive way versus reacting to what's happening and having students maybe get involved with some things that are very dangerous for them. And so now we have that transition from the high school to the middle school. So I just wanted to point that out and thank the team and explain that so much has gone into analyzing this over the last several years. So please go right ahead, Kendall.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you so much for highlighting, Dr. Cabral, some of those really great numbers. I think the example that I use in substance use circles is Easton's vaping numbers going from 1 in 3 students in 2017, 1 in 3 students had vaped in the last 30 days to now less than 1 in 10. That's amazing. Just and with everything that that Susan Mancuso spoke about really weaving that throughout courses that they took all throughout the day. I mean, just such a unified effort by the school staff. I think it's just amazing.
And not just education of our students, but parents as well. We've done this publicly every time except for the during the pandemic, and it was startling for us, I think, and probably for you as well, that parents really felt like vaping was a safe option at first. Many parents did, and I think now having that, we can see the influence that parents have on their students, and being able to provide them that education was very valuable as well.
Definitely. So looking at middle school, we do see a similar trend as to what was seen at the high school. The depression number has increased, as well as the suicidal ideation question has increased. Both of those are right in line with what is happening regionally. So while it is increasing, it's increasing everywhere. So I think there will be plenty of partners to discuss the ongoing response to mental health and especially younger youth mental health as a result of the pandemic. We saw higher rates of depression in 8th graders. Their rate was 33% versus 7th graders, which was 21.8%. Suicidal ideation was also higher than 8th graders, 19.5%. Plans of suicide was higher in 8th graders, 13.1%, and suicide attempts was higher in 8th graders with 7.2%. Again, the trends continued with female students expressing more mental health concerns than our male students. Next slide, please. For other indicators of personal safety, we have a very consistent number with not going to school because they felt unsafe, actually a lower number with carrying a weapon at school, although there was a time when the students were going to school remotely. And then you may notice that this number of have you ever been in a physical fight is much higher at the middle school and has been for many years than it is at the high school level. If you look at state or national data, it's also higher at the middle school level than at the high school. And we believe that to be just because middle schoolers take this question just a little bit more literally than a high schooler may take it. So they may take a little bit of wrestling with a sibling at home might be more likely to report that as a physical fight. And it's not on me to say what is or isn't a physical fight, but there's just, I believe, a slightly different interpretation. So I would not compare that number to the number that you saw at the high school level. Next slide, please. All right, so we have the substance use data, which just as the high school has decreased, probably even more than at the high school level. Decrease in alcohol use, a decrease in marijuana use, a decrease in cigarette use, and a very marked decrease in electronic vapor product use. And this is lifetime, so that means they've never experimented with the products in their life. I think it's a huge success for the schools, for parents, for everyone who sort of had these children at their homes during the course of the pandemic and not have had any trying of alcohol or anything like that. So it seems like some really good work is going around, going all around in this community. So I think that's great. Just looking at some of our other things, we had very negligible rates. We do ask about other substances, very negligible rates of inhalation of drugs, hallucinogenic drugs, cocaine. We actually had no students in the middle school report use of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines, or ecstasy, which is always great news to hear. Next slide, please. And then we have our 30-day use of substances. So those numbers are even lower. Having no students use cigarettes in the past 30 days is amazing. I think if you remember a couple decades ago, that absolutely wouldn't have been the case, even at the middle school level. Very low use rates of electronic vapor products. We do tend to have a little bit of trouble with the prescription drug question at the middle school level because there is some misunderstanding about what may or may not be a prescription. I think, the CDC words this question in a way to really try to get to opioid pain relievers or stimulants like Adderall. But in the process, they worded a little vaguely by saying something like, have you ever used prescription drugs that are not prescribed to you? And from various open responses that I've conducted over the years, I know that there sometimes are some middle school questions about what a prescription drug is, about if taking an antibiotic that maybe was prescribed to your brother because you had an ear infection. There's some questions there. We have very, very low use rates of everything. For students that reported that they drank alcohol, they reported most likely to have taken it from a family member or have had someone give it to them. So the difference being, one is the person knows, another one is the person doesn't know. So again, with these students having been home for such significant quantities of time, it's a really great success that that alcohol use rate, something that's generally in many people's homes, are not higher than they are. Something to celebrate for sure. We'll just take a look at the next slide. These are our perception rates. If you remember the high school rates, these are much, much higher. The one thing that we do want to note, middle school numbers should be very close to 100%. A middle schooler should not think that their friends or their family are okay with them using any substances. They're very young for that. The one thing to focus on here is the perception of peer disapproval for use of electronic vapor products. That number's sinking a little bit low, and it's lower than we've seen. We had a nice discussion when looking at this data just about, these students were home. They didn't necessarily get some of that curriculum that had been really carefully embedded for them into their health classes and science classes and marketing classes and things like that. So, basically they were kind of in elementary school the last time they were really in these classes in person. So I think it's going to be really important to educate this new group of people again about the developing brain and be able to make sure that they continue these healthy habits that they already have, hopefully long into high school and beyond. Next slide, please. So we do have our sexual health and safety questions for the middle school. We have basically unchanged numbers all around. They are lower than last time. They're not statistically significantly lower, but that's because they started out quite low before. So of course, we'd love this number to be 0 at both the middle school and the high school level, but seeing a decrease is something to celebrate as well. We did see that 1.3% of middle school students had reported having sexual intercourse. So there's still education to be had. There's definitely still prevention to be done to make sure that these young people are staying healthy and avoiding these risky behaviors until hopefully they're much, much older. Now I'm just going to pass it on to Corinne and Abby to just talk about what the schools are doing with the data or in partnership with the data.
So I can start. So in response to the data and previous data, our current supports in place, these are the current supports to address the health and wellness of all our students. These supports include continuing the implementation of our summer reading program with a focus on social emotional learning. Our 2020 school improvement goal of reducing at-risk behaviors and student anxiety to improve their emotional and physical wellness through proactive interventions. In addition to the 2020 plan, our new school improvement plan will also include goals regarding improved behaviors of students. We will continue to utilize our focus block as a time to explore mindfulness, social emotional learning, wellness, and digital citizenship. And as we have previously increased our support staff with the addition of a guidance counselor position and a TLC adjustment counselor.
Hi. So we also have increased our grade 6 health classes, additional to the 30 days. We also this year have a full-time health teacher at RO, which we were noticing that really to be proactive is to teach the skills before getting to middle school. We increased our nursing staff. We continue with SBIRT 7th grade and the Sos Screening for 8th grade, which Mrs. Mancuso had talked about, which is the same type of universal screening that we use. And we have the health and wellness clubs and the 84 anti-nicotine club, which is actually we're one of the first in the state to have a middle school anti-vaping program. So it was a pilot for the first year, which we worked very hard even over COVID. We were in Zooms with our students, and it was really great. We actually did a lot. Abby, can we move to the next steps?
Yep, our next steps or future supports are going to include the implementation of the Ross Green program, which focuses on collaborative and proactive solutions to behaviors. All of our students and the grade 5 students will take part in a school-wide assembly by Katie Grier, who is an internet safety expert, just speaking to internet safety, safe interactions online, and how to address and kind of be aware of cyberbullying. And following the student assembly, a district-wide parent presentation will be held covering the same internet safety points. And we will also be collaborating with Sarah's Village. I know that was discussed earlier. And we look forward to having our students participate in many wellness seminars and conferences offered in the community.
And then continuing for school clubs, we really have been collaborating and kind of encouraging the wellness topics to be talked about. We have the Wellness Club, the 84, the GSA, the Tuesday Club for the girls, and peer assistant leaders. We also feel that incorporating the skills-based health skills in physical education, health and wellness courses, K-12, is really, really important. And also reevaluating wellness curriculum as we look at this data and really evaluate what our students in Easton need. We are anticipating a full-time health teacher at the K2 level, which again, early intervention and early building of these skills all the way around would be so helpful for our kids as they get into middle school and high school when they are around these types of situations. We also this year has started Adl Training for our EMS students, which is a collaborative with teachers and administration. And we will also continue collaborating with our community partners. Like I said, Sarah's Village, Easton Wings of Hope, the YMCA, Hugs, and really any sort of organizations that we have, I think are really important for students to hear it from all different angles, not just us, but again, parents are also super important. So I really think that we have a solid plan as we move forward.
And I just want to speak about district supports as well. And over time, we have certainly increased our adjustment counselors, our nursing staff. I can't say enough about the collaboration of our educators, nurses, psychologists, teachers. They're exceptional, really. And it's been a really trying 2 years for everyone. And it just speaks volumes that the data is what it is, given how hard these last 2 years are. And we know that the impact of COVID has affected this data. Doesn't mean we're going to sit back on our laurels. We have a lot of work to still do, and we anticipate as kids are out socializing more and back together, we may see increases in this data the next time we do the survey. Chrissy really helps coordinate all of our professional development. We have a lot around SEL. We just actually had, who was our speaker? Jessica Minahan just spoke very recently to our staff about anxiety. That was very well received. I don't want to be redundant. I know we've talked about SBIRT and our screening, Easton Community University. There's been some really great speakers. And again, I can't say enough about our collaboration with parents and our community partners. And it's appropriate that Sarah's Village is named Sarah's Village because it really does take a village. It takes all of us working together to support these kids, help them make healthy choices, and be confident going forward in life. That's our job. So we will continue to collect data. Then we will do this survey again in 2023. I know there's been requests for parents to participate. We would certainly welcome that. And Chrissy, if you want to go to the next slide, the last slide, I think. So special thanks to our students, faculty, administrators, parents, for all of your support. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you all for your work on this. I know it's a lot of information, and I know that it's not just to check off a box. It really drives your programming for students, and many thanks to our community partners and donors as well in helping us to provide these services for our kids.
Thank you. Does school committee have any questions, comments before we go to public comment? Jackie?
Thank you so much for your presentation. So I know you said the surveys are based on the CDC survey and previous Easton surveys. So, for example, from year to year, how do you I'm sure there's a lot of extra questions in there that you kind of decide aren't the ones you want to include. How do you sit down and decide for Easton, for this age group, these are the questions that we think should be answered or asked, I should say?
I guess I'll jump in and start, but I will welcome anyone else to join in. So we sit as a committee and we look at past data, the trends over time. And if there's no new relevant information and it seems redundant to continue questions, we may eliminate. We actually eliminated a good number of questions in this particular survey from previous surveys. If there are particular trends or issues that we see arising in our students, we may add a question. So if we see an increase in vaping or marijuana use, we may add additional questions to get more information and dig a little deeper to figure out, what is going on and then develop a plan going forward. We don't tend to change a lot of the questions. And Kendall or anyone else, you can jump in. I don't know if Eileen Gardner's on here, Chrissy, okay. We haven't tended to change a lot of the question, but again, we really want to look at what's happening in Easton. What information do we need? Where are we seeing trends increasing that we may need to get more information on?
Roughly what percentage, obviously you don't know the exact percent, I don't imagine, are questions that the committee has tailored, as opposed to ones that are used directly from published and researched questions?
I would say definitely less than 10% are tailored.
I agree.
Questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and each year I take the survey, the previous year's survey, compare it to the national survey and say, okay, here's any questions that need to be updated. A good example is like the vaping questions have been evolving as vaping, products have been changing over the past couple of years. Here are the questions that we've updated. Here's why they've been updated. Here's the questions that are totally specific to Easton. Do you want to keep or take those away? And then sometimes a question is added because, and I have a good example from this year was about nicotine pouches, because the school nurses reported hearing a lot about the use of nicotine pouches versus like something like a chewing tobacco. And there was concern and anecdotal evidence that might be happening, and the number was incredibly low. So actually it was just sort of reassuring, like, okay, we heard a little rumbling about that, but it's not actually really happening. So a little blip question like that could pop up and then drop off the next year because it was just sort of like a little check.
Right.
Because the vaping questions weren't, when we first included those weren't in the national.
Correct.
Am I remembering correctly?
Easton was very ahead of the curve, I would say, with some of the vaping questions that they asked.
And if you think about that, because we were ahead of the curve, we looked at that data. There were a lot of efforts made on the part of our staff, and I've shared some of the poster campaign and brochures that our nursing staff and counselors have. It really has had an impact, a positive impact on decreasing the use of vaping.
Was that the reason that led us to get Eastern Wings of Hope to help us with the vaping sensors?
Yes.
Okay.
All set, Jackie? Okay. Anybody else? Jen?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for the very thorough presentation as always. This is always sobering data, but good data. And I couldn't help but notice, because we are so close to budget season, right? So as we look at our budget and we look at past budgets and changes that have evolved in the district in terms of positions that we've been able to add or expand on, I can't help but notice the parallels between these results and the programs and district supports that we've been able to put in place. There is a direct line between having this data and knowing where we need to spend our money, right? So I know there's a saying, right? If you want to show somebody your priority, show them your budget. And so I can't say enough about how important it is for us to have this information, so that when we're making really difficult decisions about where to allocate our limited resources, we have firm data to back up those decisions and to put, requests for programming and supports in context of all of the other district needs, and then to be able to see the impacts of those over time is really helpful as well as we're making those decisions again around budgets and staffing, and then also to see the direct connection between the survey data and what comes up to us through the school improvement plans that are developed by the school councils. So again, I just want to say how important having this information is to really validate and quantify where we are spending our funding and our resources. So thank you for all of the work put into this. It's really, really helpful from a policy and budget standpoint. Thank you.
It is. Thank you. You're correct about that.
Thank you, Jen. Any other questions or comments? Jackie?
So this is done, I understand, every 2 years. So when is it, what's the timeline? Like, when do you start to sit down and think about what you want to do for the next survey? And kind of following up with that, I know, I think Teresa had mentioned getting parents involved if they wanted to. How would that work?
So we usually start planning early in the year. We have had a pattern. We've done this survey, administered it usually between December, January. I think we're going to try to stick with the administration in December. It seems to have worked well. So we start planning and sitting down, talking about it September, October. Now that we've done it multiple times, it's not the same as when we started, and it was just took a lot more time to go through all the questions. But that would be the time frame. So 2023, December of 2023 is when we would look to probably administer this again. In September of 2023 is when we'd be starting to do the planning.
Might I add too that we keep a list from the day that we give the survey of any updates. I know Corinne has quite a long list of anything we're like, we notice like, oh, we have to tweak that for next time, or the section header really didn't give enough information about bullying there. And so we just go through and make sure that we have a really good after action report to start from for the next year.
Right. And we have had parents who have expressed interest in participating, and we have told them that absolutely they would be welcome to do so. And so this won't happen until the timeline that Teresa said, because we like to do it closer to when the test will be administered for obvious data reasons. And so we encourage people to watch for that.
So I don't know if this is Felicia or Teresa. What is going to be the process to reaching out to parents and having them either be selected or how's that going to all work to include them? So
Michelle, I have had one parent reach out to me already. I don't think we've thought that far ahead. I mean, if 50 people say they're interested, that would be quite a large number of people. So we will have to figure out a way to, how do we make that decision? I mean, it's a relatively small group of us who get together. Kendall or anyone else help me, maybe 10 of us. And then depending on people's availability, it could be a little smaller at some of our meetings.
Yes, so we've had many different groups where parents are invited to participate, and sometimes we take the one that shows interest, and sometimes we might have a lot of people. And so what we would do specifically in a case like this where it represents high school and middle school, we would make sure we have representation from each. And sometimes what parents will do is they'll get together and they will, if there are 50 who are interested, obviously that's a lot to try to get something accomplished in a short amount of time. So sometimes they'll get together, and then the representative from that group will join the committee and express any concerns, take questions back and forth, serve as a liaison. That's how it works with my superintendent advisory committee with different subgroups in the community as well.
So when you start to get to that point, would it be possible for you to just touch base with us at the school committee so we know what that process is? And
yep, the committee will do that.
So we can share all the same message to parents?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Jen?
I do have one question about, and Dr. Cabral, I believe you addressed this back in December, but I don't recall the answer. I know for the high school, because I have students there, that I'm 99% sure a hard copy letter came home. And Mrs. Kavanaugh's here, so she would know as well what was done there. So I'm pretty sure a hard copy letter came home, and then it was probably in like the monthly newsletter as well. And then I believe for the middle school, it was in the monthly newsletter. But was there a letter mailed home at the middle school, or was it determined that, electronic communication was probably the most effective there? And would we change that going forward? I know there was a lot of feedback about, the parents who felt like however it was communicated, and I know it was communicated through multiple channels in both schools, that, some still were unaware of it. So just if you can refresh my memory on if it was done exactly consistently at both, or if there was a difference between the middle school and the high school.
There's always a parent letter that goes out, and that was consistent at both. We've, especially when school has been most or all electronic, some administrators have moved to electronic communications. The one place that we always recommend parents really, we know a lot of information goes home, but we always recommend that parents read the principal's newsletter. That's principal's direct communication with parents, and it's going to have all of the most important information. And then, of course, there's always a hard copy that's available in the office, as was the case. And it's in the time of year where there are parent conferences, and so it's always there when there are parent conferences going on, so that parents can always conveniently see a hard copy in the office as well.
And Jen, you're referencing the opt-out letter, because any parent can opt out. And also, just to note, any student can opt out. So if they're in the middle of the survey and the student just, they can just opt out of doing it at that point too.
And there is training for the proctors, and proctors do not answer questions. They do not provide details. I know there was some conflicting information out there, but Ms. McCarthy, for example, was a trainer and a proctor. And if a student doesn't know what something is, they're clearly directed to simply skip the question. We never answer or elaborate for a student on what anything is, so there are no awkward or uncomfortable conversations. They simply skip the question. Thanks.
Do they have the option in these questions? Is there like a set of answers and then I don't know, or other, or something, so they have something other to pick than being forced into some type of an answer?
There are some questions that the CDC recommends. We do go with that when they say, I don't know what this question is asking. It's usually pretty rare, as like Dr. Cabral said, they just suggest that you skip the question if you don't know, and that is just consistent with what the CDC recommends. So if the CDC recommends that we put that for that question, we do. Otherwise, we don't.
Caroline?
I assume the students also know that this is anonymous, that the data is never identifying in terms of, who has answered in what way.
Yes, of course.
So
there's a script that's read at the beginning explaining that, Caroline, before the students take the survey.
Well, that was my assumption. I just wanted to make sure that we kind of went on record that, when you talked about skipping, obviously if the students know it's an anonymous survey, I think most of them would be pretty comfortable skipping any questions that confused them or, in some way they just did not want to answer.
Teresa, I have a question about, or I'm not sure who this is for, about how the students are taking the tests. I do testing in my school using Chromebooks all the time. And there's times when they log in under their actual login, and then they may go to a Google form or an app or something. Or Google Classroom. And then there's times that they completely log out and they go down to the bottom of the computer and they go in through the waffle to an app. So that they're not ever logging in at all. Do you know how the students are accessing this test?
If they're not logging in using their email, it's actually a link. And Corinne, if you can jump in, and because you've done this with the students in the classroom. So there's no way to identify that student. It's a link that they access to do the survey, and they're using Chromebooks.
Yes, that is correct. They're using the Chromebooks. They're in class and they are directed to skip questions when they do not know. But the school never gets the data, as Kendall said before. So we never actually so we don't know who the students are. We don't see any of that data. We see the reports that Kendall provides.
So how are they accessing the link? They have to log in under their username and then go to the link?
It was through their email. The link was through their email, yes.
And just to be clear, even though you could use like a Google Forms or something, which would be a cheaper option, a Google form does technically, even though you could make it anonymous, could identify a person logged in on their Google account to their Chromebook. So we're intentional about using a system called Qualtrics, which is a professional survey software, and they can access it through the link, or they could type it in, the really long URL if they want to type it in rather instead. I do think they're logged into their computer as a whole, but the application is not associated with Google or with, how the security involved in their computer.
Caroline?
So when you're looking at the data, Kendall, you're not seeing anyone's email.
Oh, God. Yeah, no.
Caroline?
Could you just repeat the name of that program? I couldn't really hear it clearly.
Yeah, it's called Qualtrics. It's a QUAL Tricks, TRICS.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. If there is not, Chrissy, do you want to go to the public comments?
Sure. Carrie Bishop, 464 Bay Road. First question, what are the oral sex percentages?
Would you like both middle school and high school?
She didn't clarify, so I would assume yes.
Okay, so the middle school is at 2.4% have ever participated in oral sex, and the high school, sorry, it'll just take me 1 second. 77.7% have never, so that's 22.3%. Hold on, let me just do the math, make sure I get it right. 22.3%, so 22.3% have participated in oral sex in their lifetime.
And then number 2 on that question, what programs specifically have come from this survey from middle schoolers from the sexual behavior questions?
I'll have to pass that to the schools.
Right.
Can you repeat that question, Chrissy?
What programs specifically have come from this survey for middle schoolers from the sexual behavior questions?
Wouldn't we have just received the data? How would we have?
If there was information in the past, possibly.
Ms. McCarthy, you're muted. Oh, now she's frozen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I will take this one. So as far as programming, and it is not directly, it's more about the refusal skills, consent. Again, teaching these skills, these health skills, so kids are prepared in situations that they become involved in, whether, again, and I talked about early intervention as well. So I think that is super important. But again, we're not teaching anything about oral sex. It's more of the question where what we need to actually kind of what we need for our kids to not participate in risky behaviors. I don't know if you want me to give you the background. I did talk to Mrs. Gardner, and students talk to the nurses a lot. And there were, in 2015, we were seeing an increase. And if you look at the data, it is there and it supports it. We were based on reports and issues that we were seeing at that time. The oral sexist question was going to be phased out. And again, we were waiting to see significant decrease that we didn't have to ask it anymore. And again, it has been decreased since the pandemic because of the social distancing was enforced and starting seeing risky behaviors increase in discipline issues. So again, I'm glad it's trending down, and that is such a positive thing. But that was the question in 2015 of why it was put on there.
And I just want to jump in, having been a middle school educator for many years myself, middle school students do engage in that behavior, and there's a persistent myth that there are not health risks associated with oral sex because kids think, well, you can't get pregnant. And the education is so important around that, particularly at the middle school level, because across the country, we see those trends that does happen. That doesn't mean all middle school students. It doesn't mean no middle school students, but that has been an issue in particularly here, which is why when we tweak these questions, we want to look at what's happening in Easton and how do we best address that.
Okay, question 2, or not question 2, sorry. Sarah Daigle, 31 Clark Hill Drive. Given the increase in depression in the 8th graders, particularly the female 8th grade students, has there been consideration to increasing counseling staff and or availability of counseling groups at OA for next year's 9th graders? With already high levels of emotional distress, the transition into high school next year may be particularly difficult for struggling students. Also, do you have data on self-harm behaviors such as cutting?
So, yeah, go. Sorry, Ms. Kavanaugh, go ahead.
That's all right. So at the high school level, we have very sufficient counseling. We have 5 school counselors and 2 adjustment counselors at the school, as well as 2 school psychologists that are able to meet the needs of students who require support for mental health. And like I said before, we're starting a youth coalition for that to increase just conversation and students who would be able to support students who are feeling depressed or anxious. In our budget, however, though, we did request an additional staff member for our bridge program because we have seen increased numbers of students who require significant support to access the curriculum here at school, given their mental health issues and their absences that are associated with them. So that's a big step that we're making for next year, to add an additional teacher to that program to provide that support to students who are in pretty significant need of mental health supports in the school.
And I know that our psychologists and counselors often will have interns also working with them. We work a lot with William James College. So there are sometimes additional counselors in the building as well supporting students.
Yes, and we will have an additional intern next year working with Miss St. Mary.
And for the self-harm question, because that was the last part of that question, I'm desperately trying to pull up old frequency tables. But I'm having trouble with the server to log in, but because it's very protected. There is a question that does exist around self-harm behavior. It's very broad, but cutting is included as an example. I don't recall if Easton has ever asked it. They did not ask it on this most recent survey. But if I find that before I go, I will let you know.
The next question again is from Carrie Bishop, 464 Bay Road. At the beginning of the survey presentation, the questions were referred to as risk behavior questions. I was under the impression risk behavior was for high schoolers and above, not middle schoolers. Please explain.
Well, we believe that suicidal ideation, drug use or experimentation, and the use of vaping products are risky behaviors for middle schoolers and high schoolers.
And it really is focused on adolescence. So when this started with the CDC, they were looking at adolescents across the board. and concerns with risky behaviors and decision-making that led to greater problems in life. So we are looking at both middle and high school.
Carrie Bishop, 464 Bay Road. The first question, this year, the survey was given out prior to PTC. I'm assuming that's parent-teacher conferences being held on that Friday, 12/10. So some parents weren't able to view it before it was given, ? That's not what was just discussed.
Well, it depends on which school you're asking about, but it was provided it was in the office from the day the parent letter went out until until the test. After the test was given, then I brought them to central office for anyone to come and view them at central office.
And number two, second part to that, my son did ask a question about what something was and was given an incorrect answer again. That is not what you guys just discussed. You said proctors advised to skip if they don't know. This is not happening. So how do you assure it does going forward?
I'm not aware that that happened at all. And if that is a concern, certainly I've not received a phone call from you. And if that is some evidence you'd like to share, I would be happy to speak with you. Please feel free to call me at central office.
The next question is from Kathleen Sheehan, Harrison Avenue. First, I would like to note that parents were concerned because the survey referenced in the parent communication was the survey, quote, that has been used by schools throughout Massachusetts and the US for many years, end quote, which is untrue because this particular survey is specific to Easton. There's no question there, it's just a comment.
Well, I can actually, thank you for that comment. We, like many school districts, will insert questions, and as Ms. Bennett said, 10% or less of the questions were tailored. The risk assessment survey is used throughout the Massachusetts and the United States, and we maintain all of those questions intact. So if your input is to fix that messaging, we thank you for that comment, and we will.
Kathleen Sheehan again, Harrison Avenue. Second, if there is no education occurring surrounding oral sex, it is not included in the CDC nor the DESE Mass DPH surveys for middle school students. It is not part of the recommended health curriculum. And since 2015, only 2 to 3% of students have answered this question in the affirmative. Why is the question regarding oral sex still being included on the survey?
I think Ms. McCarthy answered this very well, but I'll repeat it in case perhaps the questioner wasn't here when she answered that. This is a question that is on the high school or is provided as part of the high school questionnaire. The reason it was put on the middle school is because we did get anecdotal information from the school nurses that there was some incidents of sexually transmitted disease at the middle school with middle school students. And it was a direct result of oral sex. And so as Ms. McCarthy explained, we wanted to see if that was a trend, if that's something that was going to increase. And then she also explained that it's a question that the committee talked about phasing out now that they haven't seen an increase in that percentage. But we don't know that unless the question is asked. And it is based on evidence that the nurses did share with us that it was in fact happening.
Kathleen Sheehan, Harrison Avenue. Does the construction, administration, or analysis of the survey use any federal funding?
This was created originally with funding from Easton Wings of Hope. But now that we don't use the Scantrons, there isn't a cost for that because it's done on the computer, which is free.
And any work that Kendall does with us is through funding through the Easton Wings of Hope. Is that correct?
Yes, which is the Drug-Free Communities Grant.
And so, yeah, so that is federal funding given to Easton Wings of Hope. right? Not the Easton
I
schools?
don't know if is that a federal grant or state?
I'm not sure.
It's a
That's
CDC
not our
grant.
grant.
A
It's a
CDC grant.
Yeah, so that's not an Easton Public Schools
Right.
grant. So that could be a question for the Easton Wings of Hope, perhaps.
Kathleen Sheehan, Harrison Avenue. Is there any legal agreement between EPS and the data analyst, requiring the analyst to maintain privacy and data security? And if so, what is contained in the agreement surrounding remedies for data breaches?
So as was discussed previously, Ms. Bennett here is the actual data analyst. She has been doing it for the length that we've been doing it in Easton, and she explained, I believe, very clearly about the program that's used and that there is not a possibility of a data breach. And of course, every person here works out of a passion for helping students. Nobody's interested in a data breach of any kind. We protect our students to the absolute maximum capacity, and Easton Wings of Hope operates in the same way. They're a trusted partner of ours, and that's why we use the secure program and this fabulous data analyst.
Kathleen Sheehan, Harrison Avenue. If middle school students typically do not understand what taking prescription drugs that are not prescribed to them means, why are we assuming that they understand what constitutes oral sex?
Well, unfortunately, as I just stated, we had students who were engaging in oral sex. And so there were students who definitely knew what oral sex was. And hopefully that is a trend that we will no longer see in the middle school.
Kathleen Sheehan, Harrison Avenue. What specific information can you provide to parents surrounding how the survey cannot be tied to their school-issued email addresses, since it was sent via a link and school-issued one-to-one Chromebook IP address, since we just confirmed that students are required to log onto their Chromebook other than the security program used by the third-party data analyst? In addition, if students were spaced less than 6 feet apart, how can the students not see each other's screens?
So again, I'm going to ask Ms. Bennett if she can repeat, just in case Ms. Sheehan was not here when she explained this earlier, the process to maintain data security.
Yeah, so I only provide Easton Public Schools with one link, well, one link for the high school, one link for the middle school. So it actually would be impossible to tie anything to them. If a survey is going to identify someone, the links have to be unique. I can tell you there's the IP address information that comes in it's the same IP address in every single column. There's no identifying information there because they're all on the same network. I couldn't even possibly say which one was different from the other one. I can only go, based off of maybe the time they were submitted, I guess. So there is no way I could tell, and there's no way that the schools could tell, regardless of whether or not someone is logged in. I don't know if technologically maybe it is possible to access the computers without logging in. Maybe that's something to explore in the future, but they only have one link to go off of. So, the parents who clicked on the survey later in the day, they also got the same link, and I couldn't tell who you were either. So it's just impossible for me to be able to differentiate if even I wanted to without knowing any of the students.
Thanks. And again, the school gets none of this information. All of it is goes directly from the computer to the data analyst through the very secure system. And so even if we were to do it by times, that would have to be a very elaborate system of a particular teacher writing down time a student, they think a student hit the send button, and when it's received, that's just doesn't happen. In terms of not seeing each other's screens, well, now we're doing a great deal of testing electronically, and the teachers are proctoring, the students are far enough apart. If they were able to see each other's screens, we wouldn't be able to do any assignments or testing on the computers. And so they are far enough apart that they can't do that.
That is all of the public comment.
Thank you. Dr. Cabral, did you have anything else in relation to this, or?
No, just once again, we received interest in parent participation. And so when that time comes, which is over a year from now, that the community, the committee will make that known that that's happening. And so please contact them at that time. And we look forward to implementing these many wonderful programs. And I, again, commend the committee for all of their hard work and the staff for their commitment to this work. They clearly love our children very much and our adolescents. And I can't thank them enough for all they do for our kids on a daily basis. So thank you very much for your dedication and for using this as just one of many data points in making the decisions that keep our kids healthy and safe.
And I just want to thank, again, our parents and community partners for really supporting us in this work.
Thank you. And thank you all for taking time out of your night to come and go through all this data and explain the historical aspect of it and how it's used. I didn't realize all the different ways that it was implemented at the different grade levels and for different purposes. So that was nice to see. Thank you.
Madam Chair, there is one more question that came in. I don't know if it's okay to still read it.
There's no address.
Did she, hold on, I think she asked a question before with an address.
Okay.
Sarah Daigle, 31 Clark Hill Drive, asked, will the data report be published so that we can read it?
So the data report is, it was given to the school committee, so it's public record now. So certainly anyone can request it. But we have always done a public presentation of this same information after it's presented to the school committee. And so we will organize that and certainly invite people to participate in that as well. It's a great opportunity to ask specific questions. And we always make sure that counseling staff is available for that. We didn't have it during the pandemic, that's true, but that's because our schools were closed. But we have counselors available so that if parents are concerned, they can ask questions and we can provide resources to them. So please watch for that information. And I would again just remind parents, there are really two things that obviously I encourage that parents read all information from schools, but there are 2 points of information that are particularly important, and that would be the communications from the principals, and then when we use the all-call system from central office. So if there's going to be priority to what you're going to read or the information that you're going to check from your children's schools, please make special note of those 2 communications.
And I may have missed it. Is this published on the websites at some point? Will this be posted for?
We don't have a great website right now. And so that is something we're working on. Unfortunately, there are a lot of priorities going on in the district. These programs being only one of them. And so we are working on that. Certainly, if people have a question, I would not encourage them to rely solely on an internet search of our website. That is something that we need to work on. Simply, please pick up the telephone, call a principal, call central office. We're always more than happy to speak with you, or email as well.
Thank you.
That is a goal of ours, is to clean up the website. It's just very difficult to do right now with the school project and the remnants of COVID. And
I was just going to say the director of technology and I have met with a few companies, and it is quite difficult right now because some do charge by school. And so it would be kind of absolute, it wouldn't be worth it to pay for 3 schools that are then coming to one. So it might be more
really
just to wait. Yeah, to wait until the 3 schools merge into one.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. All right. Okay, next up, vote to approve the National Teachers' Day Proclamation. Dr. Cabral?
This is always an exciting time of year for us. Certainly, we appreciate our educators, our paraprofessionals who just had their week pass. Our school nurses, there are proclamations for all of these different groups. We tend in Easton, well, we try to express our appreciation every opportunity we get, including this meeting. But we also take special note of what the nation calls National Teacher Appreciation Week, and we refer to as Educator Appreciation Week. We have some treats and surprises for our staff next week, but in addition, annually we ask that the school committee for this item and also the next item vote to approve the National Teachers Day Proclamation as well as the National School Nurses Day Proclamation in recognition, special recognition of their efforts on a regular basis for our children. And so I would ask that you read those proclamations and then vote to accept them. We will post them. And as I said, we look forward to celebrating next week with our educators, which is really everyone in the system that works and dedicates their lives to our children. And I would encourage any parents to reach out. And I know parents do it regularly, but next week is a great opportunity for people who have very, very busy lives to reach out to any particular educator and just thank them for their efforts on a regular basis. So please consider those two proclamations.
Alicia, can I just add, I want to make sure we include our administrative assistants, secretaries, and clerical aides as well as part of that group.
Yes, we include, like I said, I stopped naming because I knew I was going to leave out a group. So I stopped naming people. But that's why we consider next week to be National Educators Week, Appreciation Week.
So Alicia, do you want me to read them both at the same time? Vote at the same time, or do you need separate?
No, you can do the teachers and then vote, and then the nurses and then vote.
All right. Proclamation. National Teachers Appreciation Week is May 2nd through the 6th, 2022. Whereas teachers open children's minds to the magic of ideas, knowledge, and dreams. Whereas teachers continuously refine their skills to enhance their instructional effectiveness. And whereas teachers work collaboratively with other staff to create effective and safe schools. And whereas teachers are more than instructional leaders, they fill many roles as listeners, explorers, role models, caregivers, and mentors who significantly impact the lives of children. And whereas teachers work with parents and the community to support children, and whereas all educators have risen to the occasion during times of crisis to provide academic, social, emotional, and physical support to children and their families. Now, therefore, to honor all teachers and all educators who deserve the utmost respect and adulation for all their contributions they continuously make to Easton Public Schools, especially during these unprecedented times. The Easton School Committee and the Superintendent of Schools proclaims the week of May 2nd through 6th, 2022, Teacher Appreciation Week, and Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022, National Teacher Appreciation Day. So can I get a motion to accept the National Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation?
O'Neill so moved.
Can I get a second?
Star second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star yes.
All right, thank you. And then we have the proclamation of National School Nurse Day, May 11th, 2022. 2022's theme, School Nurses Bridging Healthcare and Education. And this is small font. Whereas students are the future, and by investing in them today, we are ensuring our world for tomorrow. And whereas families deserve to feel confident and their children will be cared for when they are at school, and whereas all students have the right to have their physical and mental health needs safely met while in the school setting, and whereas students today face more complex and life-threatening health problems requiring care in school, and whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has emphasized the essential role school nurses play in students' health and academic success. And whereas school nurses have served a critical role in improving public health and ensuring students' academic success for more than 100 years. And whereas school nurses address home and community factors, for example, social determinants that impact students' health. And whereas school nurses act as a liaison to the school community, families, and healthcare providers on behalf of children's health by promoting wellness and improving health outcomes of our nation's children. And whereas school nurses support the health and educational success of children and youth by providing access to care when children's cognitive development is at its peak. And whereas school nurses are members of the school-based teams, such as school health services, 504, IEP, disaster emergency planning to address the school population. And whereas school nurses understand the link between health and learning and are in a position to make a positive difference for children every day, therefore be it resolved that the Easton Public School District celebrates and acknowledges the accomplishments of school nurses everywhere and their efforts of meeting the needs of today's students by improving the delivery of healthcare in our schools, and offer gratitude for the nation's schools nurses who contribute to our local communities by helping students stay healthy in school and ready to learn, and keeping parents and guardians at work, not just on this National School Nurses Day, but at every opportunity throughout the year. Now, therefore, the Easton School Committee and the Superintendent of Schools do hereby proclaim Wednesday, May 11th, 2022 as the National School Nurses Day in Massachusetts, and commend its observance to all citizens. Can I get a motion to accept the National School Nurses Day proclamation?
Wiseman, so moved.
Can I get a second?
O'Neill, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Personnel change, resignation of Morocco principal. Dr.
So
Cabral.
this is another tough one, of course. Mr. Higgins is here this evening, so we'll bring him over. Mr. Higgins was hired in 2001 in Easton as a grade 3 teacher at Center School. In May of 2013, what started as an interim principal position became a permanent position in which he remains today. So after 21 years in Easton, Tom will be leaving the district at the end of the school year. Tom and I began in Easton the same year Tom began his administrative journey, and we kind of trotted through that together to start. He's also been serving as the English language coordinator for the district, and that was another area that he and I sort of learned together with one another, and we made it and we did it and relied on one another, and I think it helped create a wonderful relationship that would continue until today. Mr. Higgins, of course, has been the King Hawk over there at Moreau for these last 9 years, and we, as everyone knows, are going to a much different model in Easton. We're going to a large elementary school, and while we do have the neighborhoods created and we've endeavored to make it a small learning community, it's just not the same thing, obviously, as having like a Moreau Hall. Easton won't have that anymore. We had the opportunity to create a better learning environment for all our students at the same time, and so we did. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm trying to be as positive as possible, but of course this is bittersweet. Mr. Higgins is so good at leading a small school environment that he has decided that that's what he would like to continue to do. And our neighbors in Norton are exceedingly fortunate to be able to have him join their staff to do just that. They have a school that is very similar to Moreau Hall, and it was a tough call to take from the superintendent, and as tempted as I was to just say, don't do it, it's a nightmare, you'll regret it forever. Obviously, that isn't the case, and so I shared with my superintendent colleague just how wonderful he is. And so without further ado and getting sappy, I just want to thank Mr. Higgins for his many years of service. He's so fantastic. He's going to finish the school year with us and then join the ranks of Norton's best and brightest, and know he will be super successful there. He can pretend he's not a hawk or a tiger cub, but he always will be. And we will, of course, personally keep in touch. And so I just want to thank him for his service and congratulate him. You have a letter from him. He is here. I'm sure you want to comment. We'll give him an opportunity to comment. But yeah, congratulations, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Alicia. I appreciate that.
Dear Dr. Cabral and Easton School Committee, it's with mixed emotions that I write this letter to inform you of my intention to resign as principal of Moreau Hall Elementary School at the end of the school year. I have been offered and accepted a position of principal at LG North. Thank you. In Norton, beginning July 1st, 2022. I've been truly lucky and blessed to be part of the district such as Easton. I began my career in EPS 22 years ago at Center School, where I immediately felt supported and loved by faculty, staff, students, and their families. My first and still one of my youngest, greatest mentors was Mrs. Diane Skean, who welcomed me into her classroom as a student teacher in 1999. I am forever grateful for her guidance and support as a new educator, and I value her friendship immensely. My Center School family and all the Eagles will always hold a special place in my heart. After the school building project and renovations were completed in 2008, I had the opportunity to move to H.H. Richardson with all the third grades in the district. I had a wonderful opportunity to work with another team of phenomenal educators, and it was then I began considering my move to administration. With the support and encouragement of colleagues and administrators, I began my journey to acquire the Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies in Educational Leadership and Administration. In 2013, as I completed my degree, I applied, interviewed, and was hired as the fourth principal of Moreau Hall. I will forever be grateful to the teachers, staff, and students and families for putting their trust in me as a new principal. I had lots to learn, a new school family that allowed me to make mistakes, find my leadership style, and be myself. They all know how much I love them, but I tell them so regularly. The happiness I find in being an educator is only surpassed by the love I have for my family. My wife, Jen, and our three amazing daughters have always felt like part of the EPS family. Our Hig girls have had the benefit of growing up and surrounded by loving school family and people always willing to include and support them. I have true passion and interest in the development of students and faculty at the elementary level. Although the landscape in education has changed much in my career, especially through the last few years during the pandemic, my joy in students and teachers has not dwindled. I believe strongly in the power of small community schools and the ability of the school team to know and engage with every family. One of my favorite quotes by our school's namesake, Basil Moreau, is that the mind will not cultivate at the expense of the heart. A special thank you to Dr. Cabral, Ms. Pruitt, our administrative team, and the Easton School Committee for cultivating a supportive, encouraging environment in which to grow and improve as a leader. We have always, as we always tell our second graders as they leave Moreau Hall, once a hawk, always a hawk. Although this hawk is ready to leave the nest, I will forever be grateful for the opportunity to have worked in a place I love. I cherish the lifelong friendships I've made, and I promise to only ever be a phone call away. Sincerely, Thomas W. Higgins.
I'm glad you read that, Michelle, and not me, because I would not have been able to get through it.
struggling. I don't know. Anybody? Carolyn?
I just want to say I'm aware of many, many heartbroken parents who have had their children, who've had Mr. Higgins for their children's principal, but are having, have younger children. So I don't want to make you feel guilty, but there are people that are literally crying over this loss. But I think that's a tribute to how wonderfully you've done in that position. And we're very grateful for the years that you've overseen that wonderful gem, Morrow Hall.
Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate it.
Jackie?
Hi, Mr. Higgins. So my son was not at Morrow Hall, but as he went up through the elementary schools, I knew a lot of parents, I still know a lot of parents whose kids went through your school. And all I ever heard was what a great experience your children had at Morrow Hall, and what a great experience they had with you, and how much they loved you, and all really, really great things that they told me about you. And so this is a big loss for us. I'm excited for you that you're going on a kind of a new adventure, but it is a big loss for us. And I just want to thank you for all you've done for our families and our children in Easton. And now I'm getting choked up, so I'm going to stop.
Jen?
Hi. So my kids never had you as a teacher or a principal, but I know they were at RO when you were there, and so I remember from being on the PTA there, just what a positive presence you were in the school, and how much your students and the families who had you as a teacher had such a really positive experience and always had wonderful things to say. And at Moreau, again, my kids, were older and didn't go through Moreau, but I do have friends who have kids there now. And I have to tell you, sometimes I watch your morning announcements and they're fabulous. So what's your hawk's name? Is that Doug? Douglas, yes. I love Douglas the Hawk. I love your jokes. And I love, that you sometimes give kids the floor. And it's just what an amazing way to build your school culture and to start the day. And it's really a delight to be able to see those every now and again. And I really enjoy your Twitter feed, and you just radiate positivity and building your culture and supporting your staff and loving your students and your families. And we're really, really going to miss that. And the North School is very, very lucky to have you. So we'll miss you, but congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I said to our family the other day, so it would be so much easier if people just said, we hate you, get out of here. And they said, we don't hate you. I said, no, it would be easier. It makes it very difficult. It is a bittersweet thing. I'm going to, obviously miss a place I've loved for 22 years, but I appreciate and thank all of you and all the people who have helped me on my educator journey for, 23 years, I should say. I mean, as a Stonehill student, I did so much pre-practicum work in our schools at Parkview and Center and Moreau. So I just appreciate the support and guidance over the years, and to Dr. Cabral and Mrs. Pruitt, the support over the last couple of months, especially with I don't know if everyone's aware, I'm still recovering from a very severely broken ankle. You can see my giant crutches in the back, but it's been quite a journey these last few years, and they've just been so supportive of me and, answering questions and helping me out and not telling Dr. Bayetta and Norton that I'm a horrible person. So that's very much appreciated. So, yeah, it's and as I said, I'm just a phone call away. I still have deep ties to Easton through Stonehill College and all of the friends and colleagues I've met and cherished over 22 years. So thank you so much for the time tonight. It's been quite a night. It's been nice watching all the other things, the amazing things that continue to go on in Easton, and all the hard work that you continue to put in for our students and our teachers. And today, I'm still wearing my Day of Kindness shirt. Today was awesome. Chrissy was over at Moreau. One of our second graders, Parker, the nephew of Devin Ness, and his mom, Ashley, were at our school today. So Devin's a second grader with us, and all of our second graders got to participate in today. And like Jen said, it's all over Twitter. So if you're interested in seeing the pictures and the hard work they did, you can check that out at 610 Principal. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you. And I'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, so can I get a motion to accept with lots of regret this resignation letter from
I
Mr.
don't think we have to vote on resignations, do we?
No,
We can't vote no?
no.
I
You
don't think
can't
we,
vote no on a retirement either. We don't typically read resignation letters, but of course, this is a particularly special person, special situation, and so that's why we did it this evening.
Well, I wish you lots of luck, and they are very lucky to be getting you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Tom.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
All right. So, discussion and vote for school choice. I know we started this discussion last meeting, so we just need to vote on it.
Yes, we did, and you had a conversation about it, and we had a public hearing, and so now it is open for your vote.
Is there any additional discussion or comments? No? All right. Would someone like to make a motion? Caroline?
I move that we do not accept school choice for the upcoming school year.
I will second that. Can I get a roll call vote?
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, thank you. Discussion and vote to approve the career change request 2022, 2023. Dr. Cabral, can you refresh us?
Sure. So there is a benefit in the Unit A collective bargaining agreement that allows someone to have a year leave of absence unpaid to pursue a possible career change while we save their position for their or a similar position for their return if they choose to return at the end of that year. There are certain stipulations around that. They have to be an employee for a certain amount of time, for example. It has to commence in September and end at the end of the school year. One of the other stipulations is that it has to be decided by a certain date. We have passed that date, but we allowed the person to put, the staff member who was interested to put in an intention letter after the date because to give them some extra time. And finally, they, per the contract, they must be employed in full-time work and they have to identify the employer. Unfortunately, the person who is requesting this has not yet secured employment in the intended career change that they are anticipating. And so I had given them a deadline of May 1st, only because it is very difficult for us to hire for the next school year. And it's difficult to know if we're hiring for a position or for a long-term sub, or if we're not hiring at all. And so I don't believe the employee is here this evening. If they are, please let me know that. Otherwise, unless they're able to provide that information by May 1st, I think we are going to have to pass on allowing that. But without the presentation this evening, you can't make that determination. And they are not attending this evening. And so I'm thinking that might be because they don't have that information yet. Certainly, if they receive an offer of employment in a different area, they can accept that. Obviously, they can accept that. But if it's after May 1st, we will be unable to allow the hold on the position should they wish to return next year. Are there questions about that or?
So for right now, we don't need to do anything. We already voted on the May 1st. At the last meeting. I remember first coming up.
Yes, but, yeah, I'm not requesting an extension. The longer it goes, the more difficult it gets for us to hire someone. I'm just waiting to hear from the employee. It's not May 1st, so perhaps there's still an opportunity for them to do that. And if so, we'll certainly let you know.
All right, so no action from us tonight on that item number.
Not this evening, right?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So for item 13, discussion and vote to appoint school committee representatives to school and town committees. That's something that we do normally every year. We go through the list of committees, but Nancy's not here, so I'd like.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to move that to our next meeting in May 12th, when she can be here to be part of that conversation. Do I have a second on that?
Wiseman, second.
Roll call vote.
Hill, yes.
Durance, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
may I just explain to anyone who may be watching that Nancy was here for much of the meeting, but she had to leave for a previous engagement in the middle of the meeting. So, but she was here earlier.
Yep. Thank you.
She still has perfect attendance.
True. Exactly. COVID update, Dr. Cabral.
Okay, Mrs. Pruitt, I don't believe we have any statistically significant changes or information to share regarding COVID this evening.
That's correct.
Boy, I hope I can say that a lot more in the future.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Are you pulling it up?
No, there's nothing to share.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Hi.
I don't know, my computer's cutting in and out. All right, public comment, we already did. Superintendent notes, Dr. Cabral?
We did have a very exciting day in the district today. I know others are going to talk about it, so I will not, and I don't have any extra notes this evening.
Assistant Superintendent notes, Chrissy?
You know me, I come with my list. So I did want to share with the committee that due to scheduling, this had to be done tonight, but at Richardson Olmsted at 6 o'clock, the perennial garden around the flagpole, there was a service in honor of Lindley Menard, who did pass away of cancer. She was a student at Richardson Olmsted, and she lost her life to cancer in 2020. They did dedicate in honor this evening the perennial garden around the flagpole, as I stated, and it will be called Forever in Bloom. So I cannot wait to hear from Mr. Getchell. I know it was a very emotional, he was gearing up for a very emotional service, but it was something that had to be done this evening, even though we did have a school committee meeting, because he was aware that many of us would have wanted to be in attendance, but I did want you to be aware of that.
Obviously, the priority was for
the family,
Lindley's family members, and the convenience of a date for them. So unfortunately, we were unable to attend. Obviously, we support it wholeheartedly, and we're very grateful that it was able to take place.
And I also did want to share, as you can see, I have my t-shirt, my Day of Kindness shirt on. It was a wonderful, wonderful day. In fact, some of our seniors did actually go and prepare the garden. That was some of the services for Lindley's services after this evening. There were over 20 sites that were taken care of this afternoon by our students at Oliver Ames, by our seniors. And I only got to 2 because I was talking to everybody so much. Go figure. But it was great to see just the energy. In fact, at Moreau Hall, we found turkey eggs. Some of the seniors did, and it was a nice recognition of life in the light of tragedy and a tragic loss from Devin Ness, who lost his life. It ended with a nice barbecue for our seniors, and the Ness family was there, and just how much they were glowing and just loving to doing what they were doing. Honeydew Donuts actually made a donation to the Ness Scholarship Foundation. So that is there at the barbecue. So that was wonderful to see and be a part of. Just an all around wonderful day. I also wanted to just update you on our literacy adoption process. So we are currently inviting it for kindergarten through grade 6. We are currently inviting vendors in to share their programs with us. We met as a committee 4 times already, where we have embedded in professional development ourselves around the science of reading, so that we have common language around what the science of reading actually is and how we are going to move forward in looking at programming and teaching reading to our students throughout the district. The 5 programs that we are going to be looking at are Wit and Wisdom, Wonders by McGraw-Hill, My View by Savvis, Amplifies program, it's just Amplify. And then those dates are already set for when they're presenting to the committee. And I am also looking to call back, open up resource. They have not gotten back to me, but through an email that I sent, but he did call this morning. So I do have to reach out to them and set that date. The idea, again, just to repeat the timeline, is that we're hoping to have by the end of this school year 2 or 3 programs that we will pilot. And that pilot process will happen the beginning of next year with those that are interested, teachers that are interested in participating in the pilot. And then by January, have a program selected so that we can partake in professional development for the remainder of the year for full implementation of the new program during the 2023-2024 school year. It will be a lot of professional development that we need to undertake, because it won't just be about the program, but it'll also be about the science of reading, Scarborough's rope, and many other aspects. Any questions about that before I talk about my last item? Okay. The last thing I do want to share with the committee, I will be sending out a survey at the beginning of next week. For families in grades K through 8, current students in grades K through 8, because we will be able to offer again our our Summer Enrichment Academy. So spend the summer at the sea with us, as Dr. Cabral was famously named it. And we're very excited. This will be open to all families in grades K through 8. The dates for the program will be July 5th through the 28th. They will be on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of each week. We are asking that we're not breaking it up into sessions like we did last time. We are asking for families to commit to at least 3 out of the 4 weeks. We found that it was better that we could have a continuous 4 weeks rather than having to repeat things. So that was something that we did decide as the C coordinators, myself. We are also going to have a program at the high school. It is still being finalized as the determination of what we want to expand the focus. Last year it was just credit recovery. However, this year we do want to expand that for students that might be in risk or at risk at failing a class or not doing well in a class, and also to incorporate some executive functioning skills as well to prepare them as they go forward. And that will also be open to students in grades 9 through 12. So more information to come about the high school, but as far as our K through 8 program, and like I said, that will be going out Monday or Tuesday to families so that they can register their children for the summer program. It is free, and transportation will be provided at no cost for all students. And that's all I have for you this evening.
All right, thank you. School committee notes. Caroline?
Well, we have a lot of exciting events coming up the next couple of months. I will mostly, I think, defer to Jen talking about all the senior events, since she actually has a senior who will be experiencing all these opportunities. But I did want to mention the Special Olympics event that's a first time ever in Easton Public Schools. It's taking place on May 6th at the OA track and field. And at 9:45 in the morning is when it begins. And students will participate in a parade. Individual classes will be announced as they approach the track. And medals will be given. Medals aplenty. So I think it's going to be a wonderful event for anyone in the community that I'm assuming the community is invited. But I know that at least the school community is, and I appreciate the invitation to us by Teresa. And I just wanted to mention that it's so great that this is happening for the first time. It's been talked about for a number of years, but it's really terrific that it's finally coming to fruition. Anyway, I will pass on the other events because I think other people have more specific interest in those. Perhaps Jen.
Jackie?
Thanks. Just one quick note, we will be filming next week an update on the Blanche Ames Elementary School. We'll go through a few of the classrooms, some of the main rooms, just to kind of let everyone know where things stand with the school, what it's looking like. I know people have been posting pictures on many Facebook pages and personal pages, but hopefully this will be kind of a cumulative tour of the school. We will post the video. It'll be hopefully on ECAT and on the school's website. Hoping that the principals will include a link to the video in their newsletters as well. And any other places we can post it, we will, because we want people to see this. And it's going to be exciting. Once the school is complete, we will do another tour. That'll be a little longer, so we can really show everyone what the inside's going to look like before we get moved in. Thanks. That's it.
Jen?
Okay, so it's been since we last met, even though there was a vacation in there, it's still an eventful couple of weeks for the district. So after our last meeting, I was able to catch the end of the evening of jazz at OA, and even just catching that last group of performers was so worth the trip because they're really, really talented. So it was a really great night for all the jazz ensembles and their special guests. I was really touched by the fact that Mr. Benson recognized that in 2020, the 8th graders had been preparing a specific song to debut at the jazz night, the evening of jazz, and they never got to perform it. So he invited the students who had not continued with the program to come back and join them so that they could finally get that performance in. So that was really incredible. And then he also, I really love that he gave the music staff the opportunity to join the kids on stage and perform because, you know, a lot of them, they don't get to be on the stage necessarily conducting in front of a big crowd. So it was really nice to see the staff be able to play and show off their chops, and they're so talented. So we're really, really lucky. That was great. We had an election, so thank you to the town clerk's office, all of the election workers, of course, everybody who came out and voted, and congratulations to everybody who was also, in addition to the school committee positions, folks reelected to the select board, finance committee, board of health, assessors, and any other positions. The Jessica Minahan presentation was during our meeting Monday, so we weren't able to attend, but I've heard great things about it. I think Chrissy, over 70 people attended, is that right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have had that listed on my notes, but
Yeah.
it was a wonderful event, and there were over 70, close to 80 participants. And for most of the presentation, it never dropped below 70, which was fantastic. And the feedback I've gotten is fantastic as well. Most of them were parents. You know, it was well, yes, educators did come. I was really happy that so many parents were able to go. I know it's always hard during, you know, at that time at 5 o'clock for some that are rushing home from work, but for other families with young children, it's good. You know, you never can win with the timing of things. So that's why we try to have those presentations at various times. So some might be at 5, some might be at 6:30, some might be later than that or earlier. So just to, yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that, Jen.
Yeah, and same thing. The feedback I heard and saw was really positive. People just found the skills and the ideas and everything. They came away with a lot of really practical takeaways, which has been my experience. I think that we've had her 2, maybe 3 times in the past, and I've always like taken copious notes and gone home with really high hopes. Don't necessarily pan out in my house because I just want to hire her to come run my household, but nonetheless. And then there's a lot of good stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. So the sophomores, fingers crossed, will have their semi-formal dance this weekend. AP exams are starting up next week. The art department has an art show coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'll let Michelle talk about all the music stuff that's coming up, but I know there are a lot of performances coming up at the high school, and concerts and things, and MCAS, of course, happening over the next couple of weeks as well. And then you guys have already covered some of the other, Special Olympics and other things that are coming up. So yeah, it's just nice to see all this activity and good things happening in the district.
It is a busy time. This is about the time Chrissy and I both tell our husbands we will see you in June. Good luck. Godspeed. We will see you in June.
So there are a lot of music events coming up. I'm just from highlight 4 that's going to be happening between now and our next meeting. And then the next meeting, I'll tell you the next group. On May 4th at 7 o'clock is the OA String Night. On May 5th from 2 to 8 is Junior MAJE. And that is a jazz type event. Different schools come, the jazz ensembles come. They perform for judges. They get scores based on their performance. Maybe certain students win awards. And there's also a workshop component to that where they may compete. They go to a workshop. They maybe get critiqued from, their performance, and they work on different things. And then they get to see each other play and learn from each other. It's a really cool event. So then that's from 2 to 8 on the 5th. On the 11th at 7 o'clock is the OA Tri-M recital. And the Tri-M, if you're new to the music world, is the music's version of basically a National Honor Society. And so those students have been selected for that, and this will be their end of the year recital. And on May 12th at 7 o'clock is the OA Spring Concert. So a lot going on in music in the next couple of weeks. Jen?
I have one more thing I forgot to mention, and the invitation came in the mail today to the National Junior Honor Society ceremony at the middle school, which will be coming up in the next couple of weeks as well. So that's a great night too. We're looking forward to that.
Caroline?
I forgot to mention that all of us attended last night via Zoom the budget hearing of the Select Board Finance Committee and School Department. And the good news is that we appear to have a balanced budget to take to town meeting for a vote.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session, and we will be returning to open session for the purpose of discussing strategy with respect to bargaining, Unit A, for the purpose to comply with the open meeting law, to review minutes prior executive sessions for approval and or release for January 14th, 2021, January 28th, 2021, February 11th, 2021, March 11th, 2021, March 25th, 2021, April 8th, 2021, April 29th, 2021, May 20th, 2021, June 24th, 2021, and pursuant to MGL C30A 21A2 to conduct contract negotiations with the superintendent. And in my opinion, having this discussion in public would be detrimental to the bargaining position of the school committee. Do I have a second?
Wiseman, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Frank, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
And again, we will be back.
And there is a Google Meet that we're attending, we're going to.
Thank you.
You sent us an email, right?
Yeah, it's an invitation, yes.
Yeah, I'll be slow as usual
Okay.
because I have to switch devices. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. I think we're all back and ready to go. For the last two items, I just want to mention our next school committee meeting is May 12th at 5 o'clock. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to release previously approved executive session minutes for meetings January 28th, 2021, February 11th, 2021, March 11th, 2021, March 25th, 2021, April 8th, 2021, April 29th, 2021, May 20th, 2021. Do I have a second?
O'Neill,
Wiseman,
second.
second.
Give it to Jackie.
Okay, roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Drance, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, and can I get a motion to adjourn?
O'Neill, so moved.
Star, second.
All right, roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Drance, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, thank you. Have a good
Night.
night.
Same to you. Bye.